Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. It's great to be with you on a Friday. How nice is it outside? I finally feel the season turning. We're going to have a great show today. Julie Arbelaez is in the house. She is the chief frog. The chief frog. I love how she puts that. At Peace Frogs Travel Outfitters in Barracks Road Shopping Center.
We're actually in the Millmont shops.
We were in Barracks Road.
You were in
Barracks Road. In the Millmont shops. That's where I was first touched by the brand, I think in 2001. But we're going to spotlight her and the evolution of her business on today's program. We're going to spotlight what she loves about this community, what she loves about being a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. I encourage you to get involved on the broadcast, on any of the streams that you're watching. Put some comments in the comment section. I'm happy to relay it over to Julie. Let's thank some of the folks that make the program possible. We'll give some love to one of our favorite clients, Interstate Pest and Service Companies. We are their proud advertising agency of record. The business started in 1969 with the first generation. His name was Mr. Robert Wells. And in 1969, Mr. Wells said, I'm going to launch a company. I'm going to use my personal truck and payphones to build the business. He went to his first customer, serviced them successfully in 1969, found the closest payphone, and said, can I come to your house now to service your home? Today, Interstate Pest and Service Companies is over 4 generations of family strong, almost 100 employees, and has a business footprint of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I love success stories like that here at I Love CVille. We also love Dr. Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. We're their proud ad agency of record. Whether it's chiropractic care, sports medicine, or physical therapy, Dr. Wagner and his team are changing people's lives. Judah Wickhauer, you're the director, sir. Why don't we go to the studio camera, and why don't we welcome Julie to the show? First, I'm going to start by saying good afternoon. Julie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Before we get to the business, before we get to your entrepreneurial journey, who is Julie? What makes you tick?
Wow, so many things. Obviously travel, very inspired by world cultures and history and immersing myself in change and different things going on. I also have 2 children.
Nice.
They're baseball players, so we're very involved in the baseball community, as is my husband in town. And I think my most current passion is restoring pollinators to our environment. That's completely off what I do for my living, but I've been into gardening for a very, very long time, and I'm really trying to get more and more involved in restoring pollinators to the city and the county of Charlottesville because it's really important to our ecosystem.
I think that's the first time I have ever, and it shows how naive I am, the first time I've ever heard the word pollinators. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly far from being an expert. Bees, beehives, any animals that are out there pollinating our flowers, and I mean, it feeds the whole ecosystem. Without bugs, we don't have birds. Without, birds, it just goes in a big circle all the way up through all the different ecosystems. I don't even know how to put that, but
I think you put it well.
Part of climate change and part of how we support the land that we love in this area, which is so agricultural in our state. And it's something that my kids can be involved in, and my family and people that I work with. So it's important to me.
I can already tell this interview is going to go well. You have that social entrepreneurship mindset where you're committed to leaving your footprint in a better place than when you first arrived to the community.
I think yes.
We try to embody that mindset here. 2 kids. What are the ages?
I've got a 14-year-old.
Get out of town. I would never have guessed that. 14-year-old? Good for you.
And a 12-year-old.
Okay.
Yep.
We have an 18-month-old. I describe it as the best, hardest thing ever.
Yes.
Is that how you would describe it? You're deeper in the game than I am.
It is. It's amazing. It's a journey. And I try to bring them along with everything that I'm interested in, even though they may not share my same passions, and I try to follow their lead as well. So, I mean, it's all an organic part of, for me, growing. I've been able to really integrate having my own business with having a family, and that's been really special for me. I know that's a unique place to be, and I really cherish that.
I love it. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams that you guys are watching. If you have any commentary for Julie, I'll pass it along to her. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Northern Virginia in
Okay.
Chantilly.
Chantilly, okay. And you were raised there?
I was there my whole life. My grandparents and my father are from Charlottesville, so
Okay.
I've always had ties to this community, and we visited, several times a year. And so I grew up in Northern Virginia.
Good childhood?
I had a great childhood.
Yeah?
I had a very, very normal childhood. I played piano. I was in show choir. I went to the public school system in Northern Virginia, rode horses, all that good stuff.
So Chantilly, you grow up, public school system, you're playing the piano, great childhood. College? What'd you do
I
after?
went to UVA.
Get out of town, me too.
I went to UVA.
Okay,
yeah.
so that was a no-brainer, right, with family ties in Charlottesville?
It was a no-brainer. I was also in a position where, Virginia has great state schools, and I was given some choices by my parents, and this was the best choice for me. So I applied early to UVA, got in.
Me too.
And that was that.
The rest is history. How about the 4 years at UVA?
They were amazing.
Aren't they?
I
Yeah.
had an incredible time. I think if I could stay in college and go and learn for the rest of my life and not have to earn a living, I would totally do it. It was very inspiring for me.
Favorite aspects besides the learning of your time? I mean, this is the first time you're away. You got some independence. I mean, I remember, I think it was my second day on grounds. I was Old Dorms, Dabney 101. And I'm like waking up. I'm like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want. I think I ended up going like to Coupe de Villes. I remember you could get into Coupe de Villes essentially with a napkin because they really didn't care about IDs. That has changed, obviously now. I loved the restaurants. I loved taking the trolley, and a lot of us didn't do this, but we did it, taking the trolley from grounds downtown. I knew right away that Charlottesville was going to be my home long term. I ended up staying for a girl. She was the wrong one, but fell in love with this wonderful town. Talk to us about your time in Charlottesville and UVA.
Well, I think I'm way older than you, so there was no trolley.
Right.
And UVA was really more insular at that time. We really did not go much further than the corner. And we could go anywhere. We could get in anywhere. It was a lot less strict than it is now. So my first year...
It was like the 14th Street was the buffer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And there was this stigma if you went past 14th that it was unsafe.
We didn't, right. We didn't. When I was there, Dave Matthews worked at Miller's, and we went to tracks on Tuesday nights and watched him play. That was such a significant part of being at school here for me. I was in Balls, so I was way up on the hill. I was in the furthest dorm that UVA had at the time, and I stayed with the same roommates all 4 years.
Wow. So you were new dorms.
We were new dorms,
yeah,
but when they were really new. And I think what UVA did to me in those first couple of years, I recognized more about who I was and what I was interested in. And then my last year, as a fourth year, I did want to expand. So I did 2 internships. One was at WINA radio station.
Wow, okay.
So I...
On air?
On air.
Okay.
I worked with Sarah McConnell, and the team's almost still there. I worked for that, and I worked at the Institute for Law, Psychiatry, and I don't think that they're there anymore. So I had these 2 crazy internships that got me out of town. I worked at the Blue Ridge Brewery. I became less of a student and more of a local in my 4th year.
I love it.
Which was
Which
great.
one's Blue Ridge Brewery?
It's where it's morphed. It became Star Hill.
Okay.
But it was on Main Street where Bella's.
Oh yeah,
is
where Star Hill used to be. I
Yes.
remember going up the 2nd floor to Star Hill to listen to live music.
Yeah, Boyd Tinsley
Yeah.
played every Sunday night. It was just, great famous writers would hang out there. It was a local hangout. So I became immersed in the community of Charlottesville.
I love it.
During that year.
You got out of the bubble.
I totally did. So the bubble was great, and then getting out of the bubble was great.
Did you know that Charlottesville was going to be the long play for you or no?
No, I didn't. I did not have a plan for after I graduated. I was a liberal arts major, English major. I loved writing.
Me too.
And I was really into exploring, and rather than decide to look for a job or anything when I got out of school, I basically just saved a lot of money and decided I was going to travel.
Okay.
Really for the first time out of the country ever.
Where'd you go?
I got on a plane July.
Solo? By yourself?
By myself. July of the year after I graduated, which I will not divulge in this
Okay. I
conversation.
wouldn't have asked you.
Anyway, so I got on a plane in July, went to Japan for a week.
Good for you.
And then I went to Australia, which was my ultimate destination, but a great travel agent suggested that since Japan was a place that my flight was going to go, I stop there. So I said, sure, why not? So I went to Japan for a week, I went to Australia, and I was in Australia for 6 months. I had to leave Australia to apply for my visa, so I went to New Zealand for 3 months, and then I went back to Australia, and I came home a year later.
So you're 22, 23?
Yes.
You're boarding a plane.
By myself, first person in my family to get on a plane and go out of the country.
Courageous.
It was exciting.
Were you nervous?
I think I was nervous. I'm not as nervous as maybe my mother.
Yeah. Was she like, oh my gosh, is she going to come back? What's going to happen to her? Is this safe?
I think all of those things. And also, there was no Facebook. There was no social media. There was no, Viber or free Wi-Fi or ways to get in touch. And so she was letting me go. And if I called her, she would hear from me. And if I wrote a letter, she would get a letter from me. But it wasn't a two-way communication. So I was leaving. It was like really a huge step. But I don't know what it was that was in me, but I was very confident about it, and I didn't have a plan. I got off the plane in Tokyo.
Get out.
I had no place to stay.
What?
I didn't speak the language. I don't know, I just figured it out.
Good for you. You get off the plane, you're in Tokyo, you don't speak the language, you have no place to stay. How the hell do you survive? What did you do?
Well, I have to be honest. I got on a train
Okay.
at the Tokyo airport and went to Kyoto because I only had a week. And
Okay.
I had heard how expensive Tokyo was, and I had $5,000 to make last over a year. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do that, so I figured
Hold on
I
a
should
second.
just get going.
You had $5K to last a year of like this nomadic excursion.
Yes, and a backpack.
Stop it. That is
Without
amazing.
wheels.
Really?
On my back.
You're such
Yeah.
a badass. That is so cool.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So what did you do? Talk to me about like the whole, I love this story.
I went to Kyoto and I got off the train there. And if anyone that's been to Japan would know that the Japanese are very warm and very interested in Americans. And I, of course, I'm 6 feet tall. I stuck out as a very obvious non-Japanese person. And so immediately when I got off the plane and got through customs, people came to me and asked what I needed. And I just told them. And so the first night that I spent in Japan, I remember so distinctly a young woman, approached me, and she had a karaoke mic and a boombox, and she wanted to practice her English, and she was talking to me and talking into this boombox. I don't know if she was recording it, and she ended up taking me to a ryokan, which is a traditional Japanese home that you stay in. It's a guest house. And I stayed there for my first night, and I slept on a tatami mat, and they used sort of a public bath for the people in the house. And I started my trip.
That is amazing. So your first trip, first time you said anyone in your family's been on an airplane?
Well, out of the country.
Out of the country. You
Yeah.
chose to go all the way to the other side of the world.
Yes.
I
And
mean,
I
you
went
didn't
to a
choose
place
to
I
go-
didn't speak the language.
Yeah, you didn't choose to go to like Puerto Rico. You went
Yeah.
across the world.
I don't know what I was running from, but I didn't feel like I was running from anything. I really felt like I was running just to figuring out
Yeah.
who I was and what I wanted.
Some soul searching.
Yeah, so it was, I mean, Japan was only a week, but it was truly transformative.
Did you have any of those moments where it was scary or frightening or any of those moments? Or was the entire year just like coast, like free sailing?
No, I certainly had moments that I left places because it was time to go kind of moments.
Sure.
Or I had worn out my welcome, or I felt like I needed to move on for various reasons. Because you meet people and develop relationships and stay in people's houses when you're traveling like this, and you have to be respectful of everybody's
Sure.
tolerance for that.
Of course. You don't want to impose.
Yeah, but I don't know that there was ever a time, even when I went, this is an interesting story in that timing is everything when you're traveling like this. And I had met a Kiwi, a New Zealander, when I was in Australia, and I had shared with him that I needed to go to New Zealand to get my visa changed out. And he was staying in Australia, so we just said, well, my mom lives in Masterton, and if you need a place to stay, give her a call. Well, I mean, I'm 6 months into a trip without my mom, and I get to New Zealand, and I still have no plans, and I think, I'm going to contact her. And she immediately said, come to me, stay with me. Tim, her son, is coming home in a week. So I got on a train and got to Masterton, New Zealand, a place that really people don't generally travel to, and stayed on her sheep farm for a week and waited for Tim. Tim came home. He had never been to the South Island of New Zealand. So he and I he fixed up his Ducati motorcycle.
Okay.
And we did the whole South Island of New Zealand on his motorcycle.
Get out of town.
For a month.
This is like a movie.
So it was just serendipitous that these, things just fell into place. So I could talk about that trip for 10 hours.
I can tell.
Yeah, there was a lot of exciting things, and I think being open to opportunities and being a bit naive about maybe things that
could go wrong,
were risky,
right, worked
to my advantage.
Absolutely. Does 5K last a year? $5,000?
No, it doesn't. Not even way back.
You say way back. It wasn't that. Come on, stop.
Well, I've had my business for 26 years, so it's pretty far back. No, I worked on a dive boat. So I went to Australia. I wanted to learn how to dive. So I learned how to dive. I became an advanced diver, and then I got a job through the company that I worked with, and I worked in the kitchen on the dive boat. It was a live-aboard. So I would go diving a couple times a day and prep meals and sometimes clean staterooms. And I worked on this dive boat for a month, and I didn't.
You're a rock star.
I didn't get paid.
What?
But it was free.
Free, yeah. Room and board.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I worked in a restaurant in Cairns, Australia, in an Italian restaurant, and they just paid me cash. So I had odd jobs. I went out in the outback. This was I went on a tour to see Ayers Rock, and the tour guide was after that trip, was doing a month-long excursion to find this old astronomical equipment with two of his buddies, and he asked if I wanted to go. So it just was weird, crazy. We slept in what they call a swag out in the outback for a month. So, I did a lot of things that made my money stretch really far.
Did you journal or keep record of the trip? And in retrospect, if you didn't, did you wish you did?
Well, I went on the trip and I wrote. Yes, I have a lot of journals. I think I've got I didn't end up doing with them what I expected to do with them.
What'd you think, like movie script or a book?
I thought I would come back and write and travel write.
Because you're an English major. You had writing in your blood.
Yes. I did, there is one thing that I did that I have never gotten over. I took slides. I took pictures. I love photography. That's a passion of mine. And I took some incredible pictures on this trip, and I ended up selling them to an Outback, a 4x4 magazine in Sydney. And I needed to bring the slides to them so that they could use some of the images. And so I brought the slides to them, and they never gave them back to me.
What?
So I'm missing an entire, probably 200, 300 images that I took of that time because this magazine basically took them from me.
Did you ever still keep in touch with Tim?
I kept in touch. Tim visited me here. He traveled all through Africa after I returned to the U.S., and he got married, and he came and visited me at one point, but no, not lately. And I have a great buddy that lived in Perth, the western coast of Australia, and he actually came and lived with me in Charlottesville, and he became very good friends with some of the families in Charlottesville. So he went to somebody in Charlottesville's wedding in Italy. So I have kept in touch with him a little bit more, but not as much as I would have loved to.
I can, the imagery of you and Tim on a Ducati, with the wind going through your hair, going down the coast. I mean, just looking at beautiful views,
oh my gosh.
Ocean.
Yes, it was exhausting, the views. You would literally, at the end of the day, kind of want to be in an ugly parking lot. It was so beautiful.
Explain that.
I think that you can have
'Cause I don't know what that
travel
means.
overdose. You
Oh,
can
really?
have beauty overdose. I think life has these. I don't think you can have the amazing moments without the less amazing moments, because then if everything is amazing all the
Perspective.
time, you don't have that perspective.
Yeah.
And so in New Zealand, it was just gorgeous and different. And every day you could be on a beach and at a mountain and at the foot of a glacier and picking some incredible vegetable off of a tree and just eating it, and having these incredible adventures. And there was no low point. Everything was beautiful and untouched, and there were moments where I thought, gosh, I need some sprawl or something that's just going to bring me back to
Reality?
to understanding how incredible this is.
So did
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and I want to assume that's why I'm asking this question. The travel bug bit you, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it certainly did.
Talk to me about that.
Well, it's very liberating to travel. And to travel the way I did was not at all luxurious. It was very simple, and it wasn't planned. It was spontaneous. But just being outside of my home without any judgment from friends, family, to be myself was incredibly liberating. And not that I am judged or feel like I was in a bad place in any way. But there's a freedom to being out of your norm
Yeah.
and in somebody else's norm.
Sure.
And being exactly who you want to be in any moment and how you want to be, and pursuing things that maybe would be more difficult to pursue if you have everything going on in your regular
I totally
life.
get it.
Yeah.
So I'll try to relate and throw it back to you. My wife and I spent some time in the city, in New York City, and I loved the anonymity of the city. I love that, doing what I do here, when you're walking around Charlottesville or the downtown mall. I mean, let's be honest, Charlottesville's so small. I mean, if you go to Fridays After 5, or if we go down the downtown mall, we're getting stopped 4 or 5 times. And I love, love, love it. I love this town so
Right.
much. But it's a breath of fresh air when you can walk out of, your hotel or your Airbnb, or like we did in Hawaii, just put a hat on, a tank top on, whatever it may be, and just go. And then you can be you don't have to be on. You can be any person or any mood you want. You can just and when you have that mindset, I feel like in some ways, until you and everyone's traveled, most people have traveled, until you have that mindset, you're like, man, it's like a weight is off your shoulders, because you could just enjoy life in the moment and not worry about am I managing perception the right way? Does that make sense?
I think so. And I think that, there's a lot of responsibility in your everyday life.
Right.
I don't know anybody that can just be carefree all the time.
Right.
So
Especially not business owners.
Yeah. I think stepping away from it is invigorating, and it is freeing for sure.
When you came back, did you come back to Charlottesville? Did you come back to Chantilly?
No, I went back to D.C.
Okay.
I lived at my parents' home.
Okay.
Which was great but challenging. I had
Sure.
no money.
Yeah.
I was deciding what my next steps were.
Okay.
I tried to pursue some travel writing, which
It was a tough field to break into.
Yeah, I got a lot of rejection letters, and
Right.
I don't ever seem to want to do things in a traditional way. So I had already interned at newspapers and at radio, and I just didn't
Me
want
too. My first job out of college was a newspaper. That led to radio and television.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's steps I probably could have taken differently, but I didn't. And so I got a job in D.C. and
Doing what?
it was at the Chemical Manufacturers Association.
You
worked,
hated it,
was
right?
a lobbying organization.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful.
Right.
It was awful. I could have gotten my work done by noon every day and done nothing, but I didn't work that way.
Right.
So I was really just kind of figuring out next steps.
Sure.
And, once again, things moving. In that period of time where I was in D.C., I had an opportunity to come back to work at WINA, which I was considering. I had an opportunity to move in with a friend in Arlington and kind of start a life solo from living at my parents' house in D.C. And then at the same time, I went to a party in Georgetown where I met Catesby Jones, who
Okay.
had started the Peace Frogs t-shirt brand.
Sure.
And I was wearing these jeans that I had worn throughout my time in Australia, and they were ragged, and I had painted them and put patch. It was undescribable, and I wish I could say I still had them, but I don't know what happened to them. And he came over and started talking to me because he's like, those jeans are so cool. We should try to sell them at Peace Frogs. And we started talking about travel, and he was a pretty adventurous traveler. And I left that party saying to him, because we had talked about how Charlottesville didn't have a travel agency at that time that was focused on, at that time, budget travel, adventure travel,
Sure.
just getting people out, showing them that you can go without a lot of money and do these incredible things. And I said, if you're serious about this, call me on Monday and let's meet. And I said, I have no money, I have no car, and so I would need, something to get something going.
Yeah.
And we met. And we decided that we were going to start a travel agency in the back of his existing Peace Frog store, which he had just opened, his retail store in Barracks Road.
Get out.
So that's how the idea came out. I was not really
Did you think
in
it
my
was
mind.
crazy, like a travel company in the back of a retail store?
I didn't ever, the retail was so separate for me that, and it wasn't going to be my purview. I wasn't going to have to deal
separate
with
business.
that.
Yeah.
That I just was focused on the travel idea. And, at the time, we were young and we had so many fun ideas of how we were going to build the business and grow the business and tell people where they should go and what they should do when they got there. And it was quick for me to realize that wasn't going to be the model that I was going to stick with.
Sure.
But it was exciting to just think about all the opportunities and to kind of think about the eco-travel was just starting to become kind of a buzzword, and of course that appealed to me. So it was just exciting to think about it, and he was able to make it happen because he had, he was able to pay me.
Can I ask what year this was? In Barracks Road?
1993 is when we started.
Okay, so 1993, Barracks Road Shopping Center is like the hot spot.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because there's obviously no Stonefield, there's obviously no Fifth Street Station. 29 probably wasn't nearly as developed as it was. Was Fashion Square Mall there?
I think actually Fashion Square was way better then than it is now.
Now we call it Fashion Scare Mall.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to knock them, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Barracks Road Shopping Center, the premier spot, was his business crushing it?
Yes, he had gotten a lot of attention because I think...
I mean, it's a cool brand.
John Kennedy Jr. had been photographed wearing his shorts, and there were some...
What did a spokesman for the brand, or what did an evangelist for the brand?
So it was fun. I mean, it was a bunch of guys that just were trying to make something fun and light and whimsical and turn it into a national brand. And they did it.
I love it. I love it. What mom and dad, they're saying, you're going to Charlottesville, you're going to start a travel company in the back of a retail store? What were they saying to you?
I think my year of being away...
They're like, she's going to do whatever she wants.
Actually, probably had already set them up to just... I mean, they were very supportive of my move, and I think I was fortunate to know that they would have my back if it all failed, and I could, go back to them if I needed to.
So when you moved to Charlottesville, where'd you move to? Where'd you live?
Oh my gosh, I loved this place. I lived in a little cottage behind one of those gorgeous old Victorian houses on Locust Avenue.
Oh wow, great spot.
And the woman that owned the house had a family, and I became close with that family. And it was just this tiny little cottage. There was a chicken coop behind me. And so I lived there, but because I was on such a tight budget, I had no furniture, and I had a mattress on the floor, and I had a heating blanket. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about these things now.
I did the same.
I was working sort of 7 days a week to get this thing off the ground, and also to learn how to do my job. And some of those clients that started with me back then, I still work with, or we still work with today. That's
awesome.
And that feels really good.
Well, it's
really
a testament
special.
to you. Really?
Well, I have worked very hard, I would say. And I have a great team.
Yeah, let me throw this to you. How did you learn the business? How did you learn being essentially, a travel liaison for your clients, where you're offering your expertise and your skill set to them when you're so young? You're new to this business. I mean, talk to us about that first year on the job.
Oh, there were a lot of tears.
Yeah.
It was hard. I think I learned the business trial by fire, to be honest, because we didn't really know what was going to come to us and what we needed to get out and get, and what we ultimately wanted was different than what we ended up getting. So there were a lot of sort of shedding the old ideas and, hugging the new ideas, I guess. And that first year was just anybody that came in, I would listen. I would try to figure out how I was to be to them. And then I would say, sure, I can do that. They would leave, and I would just figure it out.
Do what you got to do.
Yes. And I did. There were no, huge errors that resulted in travel catastrophes, but it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. And I think that way is kind of the way that I've proceeded through all 26 years, is figuring it out by trying and failing. And I don't know that it served me as well now as it did then.
Sure.
Yeah, then it was just perseverance, right?
Yeah.
Just getting through.
When did you realize that the business was like, oh my gosh, this is a business here. Like, this is going to work. Did you have an aha moment?
I think I always knew it was going to work.
Yeah? Like the traditional entrepreneurial optimist?
Yes, I was always glasses half full.
Me too.
Anybody that asked me how I was doing, great.
Yeah.
Didn't matter if I was having the worst day or the best day. But I think that, so we actually 2 years in, opened up another travel agency in D.C. next to the Peach Frog store in Georgetown.
Stop.
And I was commuting back and forth, and it wasn't working.
Sure.
It was too much, too soon. We weren't making any money. As a business, Catesby was really focused on the retail side of things and fundraising because he had some ideas for that part of the business. And essentially, that year made me reprioritize and made him reprioritize. And literally, he came to me at the end of that year and said, I have to let the travel side go because I'm trying to get
He's trying to scale his business. Yeah.
And this is a drain.
Right.
Which
It's two different businesses.
Wasn't a surprise.
Right.
And do you want it? Or
And
should we collapse it?
Well, you're like, hell yeah, I want it.
So at that point,
it's your
yes,
baby.
I took it.
Yeah.
And we made an agreement. I never had to go. I mean, honestly, I would never have been able to get a loan or anything to buy.
No buyout?
So I bought him out, but over the course of 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
I was able to buy him out. And so it was a perfect scenario for somebody as young and inexperienced as I was to be able to make this work. And at that point, it was gonna work.
It had to work, right? Your entire life was depending on it working. I love
Yeah.
stories like this. And so ours is 11 years old. I started the business in 2008, worst time ever, but in some ways the best time ever. Because if you can launch a business in a recession and have success, then you're going to do really well in good times. Started it out of a condo that I had literally put my life savings into the business. I had to get 2 roommates into my condo just to be able to cover the mortgage. Okay,
Oh my gosh,
I
right.
rented the rooms to them below market just to be able to cover the mortgage. If I didn't rent those 2 rooms to them, I would have lost my place because my life savings at the time was $32K. Put it all into the business. Had no clients for 8 months. I literally thought I could run a business in Charlottesville that was an advertising agency that did
It is
website
hard.
design and development by outsourcing the work to folks in India. And I was like, you know what? This isn't going to work. I'm waking up at 1 a.m. just to be able to talk to them. But had a couple clients that had, you know what? I believe in you, Jerry. And like you just made it work. That condo is a rental property now, and we've had some success, good amount of success. And where I'm going with this is like the mindset of entrepreneurs of like, I'm going to throw it to you, of like focusing on what could be positive as opposed to, Jesus, I have everything on the line here. The odds are stacked against me. People are telling me not to do this. It is so hard every day. I'm not sure how I'm going to get this done. Talk to me about how that mindset that you had of this like positive mindset pushed you through the hard times.
Well, that's a great question because I have a very specific answer that I think about to this day. And that is sort of, I always think about, well, what's the worst scenario?
Okay. You do?
Yes, not in a negative way, but whenever I'm trying to push forward, or when you're trying to build something or change something or grow something or get through a financially difficult time, I was always like, well, what's the worst thing? If I lose this, I could always do that. Or if I can't do that, then I can do this instead. I feel like I always have confidence in my own ability to recreate.
To pivot, reinvent.
Pivot is the perfect word.
Yeah.
And so if I remember that during those hard times, it allows me to push through. And if you can push through without a high level of fear about all the bad things that could happen, I think your chance of success is greater because you're not as worried. I mean, there's a lot on the line, particularly once you have a husband and kids and a house and
mortgage,
a car, and all those things.
Right.
And I think having a community that has your back is also really nice to have, and I do have that. The support to kind of pursue things that might be a little bit risky. But I think for me, it's just that idea, if I needed to get a job someplace else,
you could.
I have a great skill set. I think
Right.
I think I could.
Yeah.
And that gives me a lot of confidence.
I love it. Let's thank some of the folks that are watching, and then we have some comments coming in. Christine Morrison is giving you props. Jeffrey, is it Moon, giving you some props. Becky Jenks, Carolina Mello, Ray Cadell. We have
Carolina
Grace.
Mello, she's in Chile.
We have Grace Australia watching right now in Puerto Rico. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams you're watching. Ray Cadell says, my daughter is spending her junior year of college in Paris. And even with all the great electronic communication we have today and the great organization between the University of Paris and the University of Mary Washington, I'm still a little freaked out 5 weeks later. Brave young woman, even more so her parents. With what she's doing. Alex Patterson says hello. Brittany Utz, Aaron King, Ron Gantz, Brett Lillard, Scott Elworth is watching in Virginia Beach, John Updike, the real estate agent. A lot of people watching right now.
Wow.
Leslie Gorday and Crozet. Talk to us about the business. So you transition over a 2-year period. You have a seller finance deal where you're buying your partner out of the travel agency. 2 years in, it's all yours. You have 100% equity in this business here. What's going on then?
Oh, gosh.
What year is this? Is this 95, 96?
I'm terrible with the years. Yeah, I mean, 98, 99.
Okay.
I think really another really important thing that I want to mention is that I had people working with me, and I made a very important hire who is still with me today, Rochelle DeBon.
Okay.
She worked next door at Hotcakes,
Okay.
and she came over and said, I am interested in becoming a travel consultant. What do I need to do? And I needed help, and she has been an incredible asset to our business. She's now, I want to say, of my 26 years, been with me 23 years.
Wow.
Quite a long time. I think a lot of people know her. She has planned incredible, fantastic trips for so many people.
Does she manage your social media?
Is she on there now?
I think she just reposted the show. I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
She might be. She's certainly better at that
Someone
than
just
I am.
did. I love it.
Anyway, so, she came on board when I was still very young and figuring things out. And she, too, she's from Minnesota. She likes to remind me of that she has a can-do attitude and a working attitude, and she has worked really hard and continues to work really hard to make our business and her clients really, have successful trips and really succeed. And so she came on board after I had bought Catesby out, and we were still trying to figure out what we were doing and how we were doing it, and has really stuck with travel and her position and being part of Peace Frogs for such a long time that helped me get through what was probably the hardest thing for any travel company, which was 9/11. When that happened, we were just hitting our stride, which sounds crazy. It took a long time to get to a really good place in the travel business.
2001.
2001.
Yeah.
And at that time, not only did 9/11 happen and the aftermath of that situation, but all the airlines were cutting commissions, and we had been on this sliding scale of our income just being cut, and it was not an easy situation because we would literally get a fax that would say, American Airlines is no longer paying a commission effective immediately. And so it was a sudden shift in the entire paradigm of the business. But also, a great opportunity because a lot of businesses were not able to quickly pivot. To pivot,
so
the word of the day.
So you could get share then. You could get market share then.
I think being young and not having been in the system and not used to the payment scales of the old system allowed us to really move forward and through that. And so I think in terms of talking about, I kind of worked my butt off to get to a place where I felt like we were really starting to grow. And, that exponential growth when you have a certain number of clients, suddenly you get more and more, but it's much more significant.
Oh, sure.
So I think we had just kind of hit that period.
You're basically saying once you get to a certain point, then everything after that is gravy.
I think about the Vidal Sassoon, commercial with the hair, and you got one person with the hair, and then you have 50 people with the hair, the beautiful hair. I don't know if anybody knows that reference, but anyway. And then everything started to hit the fan, and then we hit another year to 2 years of rethinking our business again.
So what was the rethinking?
Well,
what were
the
strategies?
rethinking was how are we going to make money,
Yeah.
and what kind of business are we going to take, and how are we going to handle that business. And I had also, I don't remember the timing of this, but bought out the front of the store and was transitioning into a travel gear store as well. So I was now managing both sides of the business and figuring out what people in this town needed and wanted. So it was all exciting, but also, that was probably the most stressful couple of years of the whole business, I would say.
I love it.
And as we were coming out of that, I got married.
Get out.
So then
How'd you
I
guys
started
meet?
my family. We met at the Blue Moon Diner.
No way, just to open again.
I know.
Fantastic.
Thank
So,
goodness that place is still there.
Tell me that story.
Oh gosh, that's a funny story. My now husband was from Florida.
Okay.
He went to Florida State, and then
Okay.
he did graduate work in Alabama, and he was here for his job. And so he was kind of new to town, and I was co-hosting a birthday party of a very good friend behind the Blue Moon Diner.
Okay.
And kind of saw this new guy.
Okay.
And at the same time, he kind of saw me. So we connected at that party just very briefly. We had a dance at the party. And then a month later, reconnected
Okay.
at Star Hill.
Stop, at
I
the
know.
brewery.
Such a
second
small
floor
town.
over a concert? Was it a concert?
I think it was a concert.
Okay.
And I had a flat tire.
Okay.
2 in one day.
And could he change it?
He works with cars. That's what he does.
Okay.
So he's a engineer at the Institute for Highway Safety.
Nice.
So he fixed my flat tire.
Really?
And the rest is history.
I was going to say that. Yeah, the rest damsel in distress comes to the rescue and wins the girl.
That's exactly what happened.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
So it's
I
a good
love
story.
it. John Hunt is watching in Montreal. Kitty Fernaro is watching right now.
Oh, she works with me. Hi, Kitty.
Carrie Boss watching right now. Becky Peters watching right now. We have Steve Henderson watching in Richmond. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams that you guys are watching. I would think you get through 9/11, and at that point, I was actually a second year in Lambeth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. I'm watching this on TV, and classes were canceled. And where I was a Phi Kappa Psi, and then like one of my buddies in the fraternity, his dad was there in the towers, and we weren't sure if he was alive or not. So it was like one of the first times, young guy, and I feel like guys mature so much slower than girls. So I'm like trying to become a man, and I'm like, this is real. This is history. And, travel, folks traveling less, folks fearful of traveling on airplanes right after 9/11. So obviously a challenge you had to overcome. Maybe the next challenge after that was what? The launch of the World Wide Web, right? The internet becoming more ubiquitous.
Oh, yes. That's a great segue. We, a lot of people, the web has been an incredible resource.
Sure.
We use it for everything now.
Sure.
In my business in particular. And I think when it first came out, it was a tool then it became a way for people
way of life.
to get stuff done, and it became a way that people booked their travel, particular to my business, and a way for people to shop. And so innovating around that became the challenge. And the question was, why do you still do what you do when there's the internet, right? Which has affected a lot of businesses, but it certainly has impacted ours. And I would say, that's kind of a question of relevance. And I think over time, the internet has become so overwhelming that we see, our travelers are paralyzed by the options.
Yeah.
And the choice and the reviews and what reviews should we listen to? And now companies are managing their reviews. So what reviews
are authentic,
trustworthy.
Right. And
I think it's actually over time bringing more people back to
a trusted advisor.
So it's never been, we're fortunate. Charlottesville is a great supporter of local business, and I don't kid myself that this was the right town. We're insulated by the university and the jobs and the people that are living here and spending money here. All of that makes it easier to have a business not get as impacted by the economic downturns that occur and
Sure.
that are going to continue to occur, and things going on in the world. And this is also, I think, a very supportive community that wants to support local businesses because they understand what we're giving back to the community.
I love it.
So, there's sort of a circle going on here. And I think that the fact that we are a walk-in business where you can come in and sit in front of an agent or have a packing demo or, learn how to pack for a particular trip, have this very personal experience in a day when we spend so much time on our devices, and have somebody give you the 3 best choices can make decision-making not only easier, but maybe more fun, which is the whole point of what I'm doing. Going on a trip should not be a slog.
Stressful, yeah.
Travel is a gift, and I think the people that are able to do it and do it well, I think for the most part our clients understand that, and I think, turning it into something where you have to figure out the best hotel out of 1,000 becomes very cumbersome.
Andre Xavier's watching, and he says, "Thank you, Julie, for being a great asset to our travel industry here in Charlottesville. It's great to hear your story from your friends at CVille Travel."
Yeah.
He's watching right now. Give it a like and a share on any of the 12 Facebook pages you're watching. There are a lot of folks watching right now. I really love your spirit. I feel like you certainly have a zest for life. It's like contagious. I think it's certainly being shown and captivated on the show here.
Thanks.
I really respect your your courageousness, and I feel like successful entrepreneurs, and it's so hard being a business owner. I feel like there's so many times where it's lonely, or you have so much on your mind. Oftentimes I go to sleep, and what I'm thinking about, if I'm not thinking about, and she's watching right now, if I'm not thinking about my wonderful wife or our 18-month-old son, I'm thinking about work. And oftentimes the first thing when I'm waking up, my iPhone is right next to the bed. First thing I do is thinking about work. These businesses become not only our livelihoods, but they are essentially our children. The business is like a child. It needs to be fed revenue. It needs to be nurtured and matured, and it needs to be, guided through the tough times and the good times. It needs to be reminded, hey, it's not always going to be the good times, right? And we're in a good stretch now, and especially in Charlottesville, especially in 2019 with the economy. Throw all that to you, anywhere you want to go on that topic.
I think that is really true, and I think. And what I like that I see in Charlottesville and other towns is, to me, scaling has been important to keep my own sanity. And
totally respect that.
I think that being smart about that as it relates to you, your staff, your family, can sometimes seem counter to what your business is capable of doing, but might actually be the best thing for you and your business. I really am working hard to not, we are incredibly lucky to be as busy as we are. And I know that could change at any moment. But I've also made a very conscious choice of how to scale my business so that I can treat each client the way that I want to treat them.
Sure.
Which sometimes results in not taking
the business.
Yeah. And that is a tough decision when...
Because you remember in the early times where you were taking all business.
Oh my gosh, right.
Right?
Right. Everything was coming through.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sometimes hard for a client or a consumer to understand because they feel like, well, what's wrong with my business?
Yeah.
And I think, for what has been super important to me is the team of, now it's all women that I work with, are all incredible at what they do, but there's only 6 of us. And so we can only do so much and do it well, and do it at the level that I
your standards
want to do it at.
Yeah.
And so maintaining that has been a challenge because when you're successful, you kind of feel like, why don't I shouldn't I get more? And more business, more inventory, more space, more computers, more. And it's very hard to figure that out when you're by yourself, right?
Sure.
When you're at the top of that and trying to think about what everybody else is capable of and wants to manage. So, it's an exciting problem to have, but I think that for me, in speaking to being a business owner, I think as I've layered things onto my life, in my 20s, I was business 7 days a week, whatever I needed to do. I was putting on a frog suit and going out in the parking lot of Barracks Road to get
as a
people
marketing
to walk
mechanism
through the door.
Yeah.
I would...
Good for you. That's
crazy
awesome.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like Tiffany Smith wearing the peanut costume at the Virginia shop.
Yes. And those things, you do them in succession as you need to do them. Now, I'm gonna try to go to all my kids' baseball games because that's really important to me. And if I can't, I have to balance that with what I am able to do for my business.
So I'm struggling with that right now.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm, I feel like I have 2 kids. I have my 18-month-old and I have this 11-year-old. And it's so hard for me to say no to business. We're now at the point where we're just passed on business this morning. And the reason is because we have, fortunately, like a lot going on, and I don't want to jeopardize the reputation or like the name or like the standards by taking on too much.
Right.
And then everyone's like, well, why don't you bring on more people? I'm like, because I am like not seeing my son. I am working to 7:30, 5 nights a week.
Right.
It's like the opportunity cost is too great to bring on more business because right now I feel like I'm missing too much. Throw that to you.
Well, I do have some advice that I learned the hard way because I have always scheduled around my kids' schedule and been able to pick them up from schools. And they've had babysitters and other care, but I work from home a lot.
Okay.
And when my kids were very little, I would push them off to get something done for work. And until they got to that point of craziness, screaming or pouting or throwing things or whatever it was. And then I learned, and I hope this will help you, maybe you've figured this out, if I gave them 15 minutes when they needed it, when they first needed it, read a book, take a walk, throw a ball, that was the quality time. And then we could both get back to something more individual. And I think that's even true to now as my kids are older, is ultimately most important are all these human connections. You're never gonna, I don't know that you're gonna become 90 years old and wish that you had taken on that extra account. Right.
That's great advice.
I think you want to do that with your customers too. And I think a customer or a client doesn't, if they're not gonna get your best, then they probably don't want
you working with
them. And although that's hard to understand when you want something, you want to book a trip, or I think ultimately you're doing them a favor, because if you're going to do a cruddy job,
you're doing them a disservice.
It's not good for you. It's not good for them, And I think that we try to be really thoughtful about that. And I understand that sometimes if you call and you want to book a trip and you want to go in 3 weeks and we can't, there's just no way that we can put something together that quickly based on our workload or time of year or whatever. It's hard for the client, but ultimately we're really trying to do what's best for the client. And we hope that in our explanation of why we can't help them, they understand what we're trying to achieve.
Jeffrey Moon, Julie is a great travel partner. Her agents are absolutely fantastic. That's a comment that was
Thank
just
you.
left. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams that you guys are watching the show on. We're live on 12 Facebook pages here. We're 58 minutes in.
Oh my gosh.
And you've crushed it.
So easy.
So easy.
I was so nervous.
I like to do this thing that we call running the gauntlet at the end. And essentially what running the gauntlet is me asking you questions of what you love about Charlottesville. It really humanizes our guests. And I'm curious of some of your favorite restaurants in town and why.
Oh, geez. That's throwing me for a loop.
Do you guys like to eat out?
We love to eat out. I think, I've always loved Moss.
Oh, I love Moss.
That's probably, that's been a great place to go with friends, to go with. I've gone there many times with my good friend for my birthday. Great family. I also love Tavola.
Yeah. Do you guys live in Belmont?
No.
Okay.
We live closer to Burton. So Burton's,
Okay.
I have to admit, is
Stonefield?
a quick, solid choice.
Sure.
To grab a meal. And I love Monsoon.
Nice.
Downtown.
You like Thai food?
Yeah, I like international food where I can get it and it's really good.
So someone who owns a travel company likes international food.
Ha-ha.
Imagine that.
I know. Funny.
How about wine or beer? All the above. Any of the above.
Both.
Okay. Wineries and breweries in town.
Oh gosh, I'm more embarrassed about. I really have not spent that much time. I mean, probably my favorite thing is going to Polo at King Family.
So fun, right?
Yeah,
We're
that's a
so
great-
lucky to have that resource.
great
Free
afternoon.
Polo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. How about beer?
Beer, I don't know. I pretty much drink it in my backyard around my fire pit. But
Nice.
I mean, there's tons of great beer around here. What's the place near the hospital? I love that brewery. It's out of
Place
Richmond.
Near the Hardywood.
Hardywood, yeah.
Yeah, Hardywood's fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the gingerbread stout to come out. Let me ask you this question. You obviously are passionate about Charlottesville and love Charlottesville. August 11th and August 12th. Anywhere you want to go on that topic?
Oh gosh, yeah, that sort of broke my heart.
Hurt my soul,
that
right?
whole thing, and it still does because I don't know that we've actually addressed or resolved much of what happened there.
I agree.
I don't even know where to go with that. I wrote something which I wish I had in front of me because I won't remember it, but people can look it up, and I put it on my store window in relation to that day because as somebody who was promoting travel and getting out into the world in order to sort of understand what we have here, what we don't have here, what is available in other countries culturally, et cetera, I felt it was important to put out a message of hope for those of us that want to make Charlottesville a better place, and that by getting out and seeing the world and learning about other ways that countries are handling diversity and equity and all these issues that are so,
Important.
so important.
Yeah.
So I do feel like what we are doing is important to the greater picture and brings a lot to Charlottesville, but it certainly isn't enough.
I also, after that, I was right out there watching it for two reasons. My son was in my wife's belly at the time, and I knew when he got to history class eventually that this was going to be something he would learn about, and I wanted to be able to relay firsthand perspective to him. I was also concerned about this building. It's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, I bet.
And saw evil that I couldn't even imagine, right? Got in a funk, try to get out of the funk. My wife's like, you're going to get out of this funk. Either go talk to a therapist or do something that's going to help you get out of this funk. And that was the manifestation or the birth of what we're doing here, where we're trying to spotlight people like you that are doing amazing things for the community and help not change the conversation, but showcase that Charlottesville has so much good in it in the community. And that's what we're trying to do here. And I think And I hope, and I'm going to throw it back to you, I hope that as we learn and as we reflect on A11 and A12, that we can become a better community. And I think right now we're so in like the infancy of that like improvement, where we're maybe just in the conversation stage and not yet the execution stage. But so much has come from that, in that like affordable housing and like equity and like how can we make Charlottesville better? Conversations that weren't happening before A11 and A12. Anywhere you want to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm seeing it because my kids are both in public school, and one's in the middle schools and one is at the high school, and so equity has become a huge issue and
With
a
the
transition
curriculum?
point with
Yeah.
curriculum and just amongst the kids. I mean, I think this is such a difficult thing because you want to do what's best for the whole community and you want to do what's best for your individual child, and I think sometimes those are going to be two very different things. We have swayed to the side of trying to be part of the solution for the whole community and maintaining that through decisions and choices that we're making for our kids, and I hope they are the right decisions. And I think that the people that are operating in the school systems and many people in the city are trying to make things better. I don't get the sense anybody's trying to make it worse. It's just a problem that these are problems that are huge. And until more people are willing to be on board with making personal changes and personal decisions to benefit the entire community, there's always going to be a kind of a schism there. I'm not sure how to say it. I'm sort of developing,
I think you're saying it really well.
Developing this thought myself as to how I explain some of the decisions that I want to make moving forward. But I think sometimes our decision making is just, I mean, I see people struggle with it all the time, personal versus community. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong, but
I'm struggling with it right now. An advertising agency, when the economy is strong and businesses are doing well, an advertising agency is going to have a direct positive correlation to it. Because when the economy is good, businesses feel comfortable doing marketing and advertising, and then they go to folks like us. But like, I'm concerned that like Charlottesville, as it continues to do well and gets more expensive, that it's going to turn into like, say, a San Francisco. And I'm not knocking San Francisco, but San Francisco is this like bastion or this like playground of like white wealthy people. And I don't want my son, and should we choose to expand our family, to grow up in this I want it to be diverse. I want him to grow up in this area, in this community, in this town that challenges his thinking, where he's like forced to be out of the box and like continuing to like, challenge himself and push himself. And I don't think like having just like this like rich community, which I'm concerned we're turning into. So I'm like, where I'm going, it's like this crossroads for me, where it's like having that community go in that direction is great for business, but it's not what I want in the grand scheme of things.
Right. That's tricky. I mean, I think, we also profit from people that can go on vacation.
Right.
Which
so you're similar.
Which isn't everybody.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. But I think the flip is there are so many people in this community, including ourselves, that want to make things better. We, every year, and this is such a great segue, but every year we partner with International Neighbors, who is supporting refugees in our community and
Love
SIV holders, and they live around the corner from my house, right? Many of them. And so we do a coat drive in the fall, and this year I'm going to go and volunteer at the event where they're handing out the coats to their people. So we're running a coat drive now. If anybody is listening and has a coat they want to bring to the store,
get them some coats.
Bring us some coats. I mean, we donate money per coat, so we try to kind of give back, and we know that only a couple dollars can go a long way. And the woman that started that organization, Kari, was a teacher in our school systems, in our public school systems, and saw a need and grew International Neighbors out of it. I have a women's travel alliance, and the women that are involved with that, it was really spawned from an idea of a lot of women like to plan travel, more so than maybe their husbands or they're single, et cetera.
My wife planned our entire trip.
Yeah. And so we decided that was a need to sort of bring women together to talk about travel. I try to bring in speakers that, are going to be talking about different topics related to travel, or we do things that you would do when you were on a trip. Like we went to the Kluge Aboriginal Museum and had a tour, and that feels like you're on a vacation, but you're in your own town. And those, all these women are involved in the community and want to give back and feel passionately. So I think unless there's an exodus of small businesses in this community and activists that love Charlottesville and want to keep Charlottesville the way that it is to an extent, I don't think that we're going to totally sell out. That's my feeling about that. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Knock on IKEA here. So. Tim Cotton's giving you some props right here. I'm going to ask you two more questions. Vicki Vaughn's watching the program. She just gave you the heart on the stream. You're getting some love from Joyce Pye Funston. Love Julie. Peace Frog is the best place to find wonderful gifts for my traveling family and friends. They are absolutely amazing. You're getting some love as well. A lot of people here. Rebecca Robinson Hall giving you some props right now. Two more questions for you and we'll wrap up. The advice that you would give to Julie as you were launching your business, all the knowledge you have now and experience, what would you say to yourself 26 years ago?
Oh my goodness, that's a big question. Well, I definitely was having a lot of fun. I was working hard and having a lot of fun. So it wouldn't be have a lot of fun and travel more because I did both of those things. I think it would probably be that everything is fluid and not to be too married to certain ideas or concepts that become really hard to let go of and define you, that change is coming, and the more fluid you are, the easier the change
That's good advice.
Will be.
Yeah. You're basically saying be open-minded to see what comes down the pipe.
Yes. Yeah. Because when I started, I had a specific idea of who I wanted to serve and how I wanted to serve them. And I learned the hard way that people want to travel where they want to travel, when they want to travel. And facilitating that and making that process as great as we can for them is much easier than telling them what they should be wanting to do.
I love it. My final question, how about the advice you'd give to aspiring entrepreneurs? 80% plus of small businesses fail in their first 3 years. Doing what we do is brutal. It's very invigorating, it's empowering, it's rewarding, potentially financially, emotionally, internally, but it is no easy task.
I would say the joy of being in charge is that you can create something that is really meaningful to you and hopefully the people that you are working with, and therefore becomes meaningful to many people in your community that you're serving. And that is worth everything to me, and to not give up. I mean, you just have to push through and have confidence.
I love it. Good advice. You crushed it. You get a home run.
Thanks.
Yes, so good.
It.
Say good. Guys, this is what we're going to do with today's show is we're going to archive it on ilovecville.com. So if you want to watch it in totality, go to ilovecville.com. We'll take the audio and we'll turn it into a podcast by close of business today on iTunes. We'll syndicate the show for 30 days across the I Love CVille network, which is 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, an e-newsletter that goes out to 108,000 plus inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. Of course, on ilovecville.com, an Instagram community that's the third largest in Central Virginia, behind UVA and behind the city of Charlottesville's account. I thought today's show was awesome. I thought Julie was inspiring, and I truly appreciate her most precious commodity, which is her time. I try to close the show the same way with the same message, and that's to embody the golden rule. I don't make it about religion. I make it about treating others like you want to be treated yourself. It's the golden rule. I feel like Charlottesville needs the golden rule more than ever. I feel like the Commonwealth and the country needs the golden rule more than ever. So just think about it. Treat others how you want to be treated yourself. My name is Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show, and what we try to do is spotlight the best of Charlottesville, Virginia. Enjoy your weekend. Take care. You did so well.
Thanks.
70 minutes.
Wow. And I didn't even really, do you think people know what we do? I was like, I didn't even talk about any of the things that I was going to want to talk about.
I think people definitely.
Okay. Yeah, you do a good job with your interviewing. It's sort of is easy.
Thank you. So,
Thanks.
background is print, radio, TV. So I used to do this before I launched this business. You have a way with words, as you know.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know. When I listen back, I hope